Namaskaram, welcome friends. In this last lesson of our 7 steps to learn a horoscope, you will understand how to time life events using Vimśottarī Daśā, which is one of the 42 timing systems discussed by Bhāveśa. In this lesson, you will learn how to predict the results of a Daśā based on the Svabhāva, the nature of a planet, his Sthāna Sthiti, which is his place in the horoscope, its Graha Vīrya, which is his strength in your unique charts, its Drekkāṇa, which is the unique position in the chart. You will learn how to predict events based on planetary yogas and the house lordships of the planet. At the end, I will teach you another final secret step, how to predict events based on the relationship between the Mahadaśā Lord, the Lord of the major time cycle, and the Antadaśā Lord, the Lord of the minor time cycle. When speaking about timing in Vedic astrology, one of the most fundamental and universally applicable techniques is the Vimśottarī Daśā. Vimśottarī means 120 and Daśā refers to a state or condition. So the Vimśottarī Daśā refers to 120 states or condition, meaning 120 years in our life, and how we are going to experience them, what will happen in them, and which unique flavor they carry. In astrology, the span of 120 years refers to the maximum natural human life stage. Of course, some people can live longer, many of us live much shorter lives because of the lifestyle that we live in our modern world. But according to the astrological classics, in this day and age we live in today, 120 years is the maximum timeline of our life. Vimśottarī Daśā is calculated from the moon. There are many other Daśā, many other timing systems, and we learn a lot about them by understanding how they are calculated from, which part of our horoscope do they emerge from. So Vimśottarī Daśā emerges from our moon, and particularly from the nakshatra, the lunar mansion that is our moon is placed in. And what does our moon refer to? Our moon here refers to our mind and also to society. Therefore, Vimśottarī Daśā, because he is calculated from the moon, reveals how our mind will operate throughout our life, how we are going to feel throughout these 120 stages, those 120 years in our life, and also, since the moon represents society, who are the people that we are going to meet during Vimśottarī Daśā. To give a very simple example, if you run Venus Vimśottarī Daśā, it is a very good time to fall in love, because Venus will cover our mind. And in society, whom we're going to meet? Well, we're going to meet Venus, we're going to meet love partners. In the same way, if we are running a Saturn Vimśottarī Daśā, then we might feel a little bit more constricted, we feel a little bit limited, we could feel burdened, we might lose a limb, life will be a little bit more difficult during Saturn's Daśā. And who are the people we're going to meet during Saturn? Well, maybe we meet older people, maybe we just don't meet anyone, maybe there's just a lot of distance between us and society. So that is a very simple understanding of how to read the Daśā. Of course, in this video you will learn so much more depth about this. Let me briefly break down how the Vimśottarī Daśā is calculated. The exact calculation we can explain in another video, but it is important to note that 120 years of life are divided among the 9 planets. The Sun takes rulership over 6 years in the total of the 120-year Vimśottarī Daśā. Moon takes rulership over 10 years, Mars over 7, Rahu over 18, Jupiter over 16, Saturn over 19, Mercury over 17, Ketu over 7, and Venus over 20 years. So counting this together, 6, 10, 16, 23, 41, 57, 76, 93, 100, 120 years. There we have it. Depending on the planet that rules the nakshatra of the moon, Vimśottarī Daśā will start at a particular interval related to this planet. For example, if the moon is in Jyotiṣa nakshatra, which is the 18th nakshatra of the zodiac, and which is ruled by Mercury. Then Vimśottarī Daśā is going to commence at Mercury and then going to progress in the same pattern described earlier. Meaning life will start with 17 years of Mercury, followed by 7 years of Ketu, followed by 20 years of Venus, etc. Now if the moon is placed in the middle of Jyeshta Nakshatra, let's say if Mercury is placed in the very beginning of the third pada of Jyeshta, then life is also going to begin in the very middle of these 17 years of Mercury Mahadasha. Now 17 years are a very long time, and it is not that one planet alone rules such a long time in our life. No, this Mahadasha, this major time cycle, can be further divided in sub-periods. We call them Antardashas, or even smaller sub-periods. We call them Pratyantadashas. For this, every planet rules the same percentage of years equivalent to its years in the Vimśottarī Mahadasha. Don't worry, you don't have to calculate this yourself. Simply enter your birth details into Devaguru and Devaguru will calculate your Vimśottarī Daśā. Or for that matter, you can use any astrological software that will then calculate your Daśā for you. Now, let's explore the correct interpretation of Vimśottarī Daśā. The first factor that we have to consider when predicting results based on the Vimśottarī Daśā is called Svabhāva. Svabhāva means one's own nature. So every planet will give results according to its own nature. As cited in the example earlier, relationships are much more likely during a Venus Daśā than during a Saturn Daśā. Sun time periods, they are very excellent for leadership. That can be a great time for business. It can be a great time for soul searching and finding ourselves. Often the father figure can be a little bit more dominant in our lives. Or we can also become recognized for our work and for great contributions to society. During a moon time period, we're often a little bit more emotional. It is a time where we seek family, we seek a nest. If we don't have children and we're at that age, if we don't have children and we start a moon time period in the end of our 20s or early 30s, this is the time when family will become very important. If it's a horoscope of a woman, she will seriously consider motherhood or having another child, etc. If it is a Mars time period, we feel more ambitious, we want to overcome obstacles, we want to fight with our competitors. If it is a Mercury time period, it is also a great time for business, for education, for learning. The same for Jupiter as well. Rahu and Ketu times are very particular. In my own experience, I have not seen many good relationships come out of a Rahu time period. Usually we become very obsessed with things. We can become a great workaholic, which sometimes can be good. Usually Rahu time periods, they give us a tunnel vision and we just focus very deeply on one thing. So that is often good for career, for professional success, but never so much with relationships, right? Of all things to get obsessed about, another person is often not the best choice. Ketu periods are great for renunciation, for spiritual pursuits, visiting retreats, etc. The second factor that we have to consider is called Sthāna Sthiti. Sthāna Sthiti refers to the place in the horoscope. For example, if Venus is placed in the 10th house of career, this can indicate that we meet our next partner at work. If we are already in a relationship and we're entering the Daśā of Venus in the 10th house, it just means that we have to be a little bit more careful with our encounters in the office. If Venus would be in the 6th house of enemies and disease, then this Venus Daśā might not be so favorable. We learned earlier that Venus does not really like to be in a Dushtana. Venus does not really like to be in an evil house. So if we're activating this Venus, we can predict there will be events in regards to relationship. And what kind of event? Well, it's the 6th house. Maybe a debate, a fight, some enmity, maybe a partner turning into an enemy. So we want to be a little bit more careful. If Venus is in the 3rd house of hobbies, then this Venus Daśā might bring some new creative pursuits. Maybe we start painting, maybe we start improving our diplomatic abilities, maybe we start racing cars. Cars are also connected to Venus. Let's give you another example of Mercury. If Mercury would be placed in the 5th house of children, then Mercury Daśā could indicate the birth of a child. If you have a person who is in a relationship and capable of having children, of course, then the Mercury Daśā in the 5th house could indicate the birth of a child who is like Mercury, who's young, who's charming, who's very intelligent. If Mercury is placed in the 10th house of career, then this Mercury time period would indicate a lot of learning in career, a lot of new social connections, a lot of improvements in terms of business and skills, the ability to really use our intelligence in our work and expand. If Mercury is placed in the 9th house of higher education, gurus, teachers, universities, then this time period could indicate us going back and gaining more knowledge and further education, either formally at an institution or informally through an organization or another person. The 3rd factor is called Graha Vīrya. Graha Vīrya means strength, and Graha means the planet, so the strength of the planet. Coming back to the example of Venus, if Venus is in Pisces, exalted, in the 10th house of career, then we will predict during the Venus Antardasha or the Venus Mahadasha, we will predict that this person will have some exalted, amazing, great rise in career. Potentially a woman could help them in their rise in career, or it is their feminine skills, it is their feminine skills, I mean their diplomacy, it is their creativity, it is their people skills, or their speech that is helping them to rise. If Venus would be debilitated without strength in the 10th house of career, then we would predict that this time there will be events related to women, there will be events related to career, but it is a burden. Maybe we have a boss who is a woman and she is just burdening us too much. The same would be true if Venus is in the house of career, but she's conjoined with a lot of malefic planets, which is inauspicious, which also weakens the planet. Malefics weaken. If there's also Mars and Saturn with Venus, then we would definitely caution this person because this time could indicate some huge calamity in the realm of career related to love, related to women. Let's give another example. If Mercury is exalted or in a sign of a friend, if Mercury is in Libra, in the 4th house of home, in the sign of a friend, this is a very positive Mercury, then during the time of Mercury's Vimśottarī Daśā, we will predict positive relations at home, positive encounters, a lot of learning, a lot of skills, etc. If Mercury is not so strong in the 4th house, if he's in a sign of an enemy or if he's debilitated, then we will predict there's a lot of communication issues at home. There's a lack of learning, a lack of knowledge, a lack of applying our skills in the realm of home. If we further want to specify when a particular event during its Vimśottarī, Maha or Anta or Pratyanta Daśā is going to happen, we can use the technique of Drekkāṇa. Planets that are in the first Drekkāṇa of a sign, meaning between 0 and 10 degrees of any zodiac sign, are set to give their results in the first third of their time period. If a planet is in the middle Drekkāṇa, meaning between 10 and 20 degrees, then the said event is going to occur in the middle portion of the Daśā. And last, if a planet is at the end of a sign, if it's between 20 or 30 degrees, then the planet will give its particular results at the end, in the last third of its Vimśottarī Daśā. To further refine the results of a planet, we have to consider the yogas that he is connected to. In our last video, we discussed about wealth-giving combinations, poverty combination, Raja yogas, combinations that can give great rise. Of course, any planet that is engaged in any yoga in the horoscope will give the results during his time period. Planets will always activate other planets that they're conjoined with, or that they mutually aspect, or that they have exchanged houses with. Considering our earlier example of Venus in the 10th house, if Venus is conjoined Saturn, Venus is particularly going to activate Saturn and will give the results of Saturn too, which means then there will be this feeling of burden, restriction. If Venus conjoined Jupiter, Venus will activate Jupiter, which means there's expansion, bliss and happiness. Planets will also give the results of the house lords that they are connected to. So if there is a planet in the house of career, let's say Venus, and Venus is conjoined Saturn, who is the lord of the 4th and the 5th house. Let's consider we have a Libra ascendant, and for every Libra ascendant, Saturn will lord the 4th house of home. There's Capricorn in the 4th house and Aquarius in the 5th house. Then this Saturn, he will not give such negative results, because after all he's lording a Kendra and a Trine, which are highly auspicious, and therefore this Venus period, which is also activating Saturn, will give rise in life. And of course, planets also give results according to the houses they themselves lord. Planets that lord Kendras or Konas will always tend to give auspicious results. The 2nd and 7th lord, however, can also sometimes cause obstacles, because the 2nd and 7th house are also called Marka houses or killer houses. One day, it will be the planets in the 2nd or 7th house, or the lord of the 2nd or 7th house, or planets conjoined that lord, that will take our life, that will kill us. And even before that, the 2nd or 7th lord can cause poverty or hardship if they combine with some of the Dushtana lords. Longevity will have to be discussed in a different lesson. The 3rd lord also can cause obstacles. Parashara considers him to be Papa, evil. Therefore, the 3rd lord himself does not always give the best results. The 6th house is a Dushtana, the 8th house is a Dushtana. Parashara did not classify the 8th house as Papa, evil, or Shubha, auspicious. So the results of the 8th house can vary a lot and depend on the nature of the planets associated with it. The 8th house does always indicate change, whether that change is a positive transformation or a great fall from position, really depends on the planets involved. The 11th lord often causes punishment. Parashara considers the 11th lord Papa, and therefore when the 11th lord gets activated, often we can get punished for those times in our life when we transgress Dharma. And of course the 12th lord, he can cause loss whenever he gets activated. So if you're about to invest all of your savings into crypto and you see in your horoscope that the Daśā of the 12th lord is about to start, maybe think twice. During the time period of the 7th lord, it's very likely that we'll enter into a relationship. During the Daśā of the 10th lord, it is very likely that we can rise in career. During the Daśā of the 4th lord, often we improve our house, move or buy a house, etc. The Daśā of the 5th lord, of course, can cause the birth of a child. And the Daśā of the 9th lord is a great time for luck, for fortune, for higher studies, etc. Another important technique that we have to know to accurately predict events using Vimśottarī Daśā is the relationship between the Mahadaśā lord and the Antadaśā lord, meaning the planet who rules the major cycle of time and the minor cycle of time. In general, I do place a greater emphasis on the Antadaśā lord, because that planet is changing more often and he is more in tune with this present moment that we are experiencing. For example, if a person is in their Mahadaśā of Venus, we know those 20 years of their life, enjoyment, pleasures, comforts, relationships are up there. They're very interested to all these things. Now, if during this 20 years of Venus, a person comes to their Rahu subportion, those 3 years of Rahu, then now Rahu, he will take over the scene, and a person might still want to enjoy, they still want relationships. But Rahu, he will bring in chaos, confusion, obsessions, the wrong choices, illusions. He's a bit of a troublemaker. So we take both of them together, Venus and Rahu. What do we have? We have a person who is obsessed and who's addicted to sensory experiences and sensual pleasure. So it is will be a more challenging time. So even if you don't have Venus and Rahu conjoined in your chart, there will be 3 years of your life, if you live long enough, in which you will experience that combination. The same is true for other planets as well. Let's say a person's running Moon and Jupiter Daśā, Moon Mahadasha, Jupiter Antardasha. Moon and Jupiter conjoined in the horoscope, we call it Gaja Keshari Yoga. Gaja means elephant, Keshari is a lion. So this person, he is associated with royal animals because he is like royalty. This person will be very attractive, they'll be liked by the masses, they will have a very positive outlook on life. Now, not many of us have a Gaja Keshari Yoga in our chart. Not many people are born with the Moon and Jupiter conjoined. However, all of us in our life will get to experience this, either during our Moon Mahadasha, Jupiter Antardasha, or our Jupiter Mahadasha and Moon Antardasha. We will get to experience what it feels like to have a Gaja Keshari Yoga in our chart. So also this time period of Moon and Jupiter usually indicates a lot of expansion, a lot of growth in society. It is a time where we reframe the narrative in our mind, where we get a very positive outlook in our mind. Maybe we become very spiritual. This is the time where we receive a lot of blessings. And Saturn and Ketu, we call it Pisacha Yoga. Pisacha, the evil spirits who haunt us in our dreams, so even during the day, and they can cause a lot of problems. So if a person has Saturn and Ketu in their chart, then conjoined in a chart, then you know what I'm talking about. And all of us who don't have them conjoined, we get to experience what it means during our Saturn Mahadasha and Ketu Antardasha. This is a likely time where we might encounter ghosts or goblins or other spirited spirit creatures. Besides considering the two natures of the planets, we also want to consider how these planets are placed in our horoscope. If these planets are placed in Kendra or in trine or even in the 3rd or 11th house from each other, they have a mutually beneficial relationship. Kendras, they're the pillars of the chart, they indicate stability. Trines indicate good fortune. The 3rd and 11th house, the 3rd house is our parikram, it's our courage, our ambition, and the 11th house is Labha, the house of gains. So these are all positive relationships. While if planets are in a 6-8 relationship, which are both Dushtanas, or in a 2-12 relationship, which is that loss and gain, loss and savings, which are more inauspicious combinations, this period will also carry some of these significations. If two planets are in the 6th or 8th house from each other, for example, if we run a Daśā of Venus, who is placed in the ascendant, and Rahu, who is placed in the 8th house, then from Venus to Rahu, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From Rahu to Venus, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is an inauspicious combination. It will inherit the qualities from the 6th and 8th house and make this time period particularly difficult. And for this sake, if we run the time period of Venus and Mars, but Mars is placed in the 9th house from Venus, then this time is not going to be as challenging. Venus and Mars create a lot of passion, they can create a lot of desire and infatuation, but if they're situated in trine, it is going to be much less problematic, and it indicates at least somewhat that we have the blessings of the goddess of fortune during this time. I hope you found this information helpful. Now you have a good understanding of the most basic and fundamental steps of identifying and reading a horoscope. Let me tell you, this is just a very, very, very top of the iceberg, and there's so much more hiding. What I've taught you over the last 7 steps in approximately less than 3 hours, I usually teach in advanced astrology courses over 300, 600, and also 1200 hours. So if you'd like to learn more, if there's any topic that you would like to dive deep into, just let me know in the comments and I will try to make a series about this. I'm also teaching online courses in our school community, the Living Tradition. If you have not joined already, I would warmly invite you to join us and to participate in this great journey of self-discovery, this great journey of understanding the cosmos, the stars, everything within it, including ourselves. Namaskar. Thank you so much for watching until the end. See you soon. Bye.